This conference will now be recorded.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Hope everybody had a good weekend. My name is Dr. Doug Smith. This is our daily podcast where we go through the science. For those of you who have ever experienced opioid withdrawal, this is a place where you can come to and hear the science. That's what we're doing here. I'm not giving you my opinion, I'm giving you the science. Okay, you can come here and you can hear the science behind what happened to you. Okay, not somebody's opinion, not what somebody wants you to believe, but the science. And we give you the science so that you can come to your own conclusions. You're the one that experienced opioid withdrawal. You felt that horror, that terror. It was beyond description. I personally never felt it, never experienced it, but I've had enough of you guys at least attempt to describe to me how horrible it was. So you're the ones who have experienced opioid withdrawal. Okay, so these people that are trying to tell you what you experienced, be careful. Okay, they're telling you what they want you to believe. But here, we're looking at the science. And science is actually pretty cool stuff. I enjoy science, I like it a lot. And I think the science here is fantastic. We started with 1963. I could have gone back further, but we started with 1963. And we started with a study by Gunn, Gunne, Gunn. You can go back and watch the first podcast. And science begins not with the answering of questions, but science begins with the asking of questions. You've got to be able to ask the right question before you're going to be able to get the right answer. If you can't ask the right question, you're not going to get the right answer. And so we went back to 1963, and what we saw was Gunn very clearly laid out that rats that experienced opioid withdrawal, after 48 hours, 2 days, half their adrenal gland was the contents of their adrenal gland was gone. It was missing. What happened to the contents of the adrenal gland? 48 hours of withdrawal and half the contents of the adrenal glands were missing. Now, the adrenal gland is where adrenaline's made. Thus the name adrenaline. Uh, so half the body's adrenaline was gone. Where did it go? Okay, Gunn doesn't tell you where it went. Gunn doesn't answer the question. Gunn just raises the question. 48 hours of opioid withdrawal and half the adrenaline's gone. Okay, then we jump ahead to 1968, Akira Brody, and we saw that what Akira Brody showed us was, hey, the urine's full of the metabolites of adrenaline. All right, well, that's a clue. Okay, that's a clue. And what you need to know is, in order for the adrenaline, the metabolites of the adrenaline to get into the urine, they had to be released by the adrenal gland. Okay, if they weren't released by the adrenal gland, they can never get to the urine. Okay, now metabolism is how the body gets rid of waste. Okay, you metabolize it. Okay, and the kidney doesn't have a brain, and so what the body does, it sticks a methyl group of carbon and three hydrogens onto something and goes, hey, that's a little flag, kidney, get rid of that. Kidney goes, oh wow, it's got a methyl group on it. I'll throw it in the urine. That's how it works. Okay, it's a pretty good system. And when the methyl group gets added to it, it's now called a metanephron. So the adrenaline becomes metadrenaline. Okay, not really, never was really sure if the MET, if the MET stood for metabolized adrenaline or methylized adrenaline. Doesn't really matter, but that's what we saw in 1963 and 1968. And then now that we had characterized our question, hey, what's going on in opioid withdrawal that half the contents of the adrenal glands are gone, and it looks like it's ended up in the urine. Why did the adrenaline get released? And by the way, adrenaline is not without consequences and side effects. You dump a whole bunch of adrenaline into your body, and boy, are you going to feel that. Okay, you're going to be grinding your teeth. You're going to have tremors. You're going to be sweating. Your hair's going to stand on end. Your heart's going to be pounding. A lot of the symptoms that y'all describe in opioid withdrawal can be attributed to the adrenaline. In fact, it's almost impossible to separate the strands of spaghetti, what was from the adrenaline and what wasn't. All right, so uh, we saw in the Dell study, Dell gave us an answer. Dell went into he built a little operating room for mice. I don't know how in the world you do this, but he built a little operating room for mice. I don't know how in the world you do this. And he took some mice that were dependent on opioids. He fed them morphine until they were dependent on opioids. And he took them into the operating room and he put them to sleep with anesthesia and he cut open their bellies. And then once he had everything he wanted, he isolated the adrenal gland. Cannot imagine what it's like to isolate the adrenal gland of a mouse, but lo and behold, he did it. And he hooked up a little meter to it, so to the wires, to the nerves. He was thinking there's something going on with the nerves here. So he hooked up a bunch of meters to the nerves, and then he gave the rats some Narcan, naloxone, and immediately put the little rats into opioid withdrawal. And lo and behold, the little meter on the nerve going to the adrenal gland went haywire. It surged by 400%. In the world of nerves, that's a bunch. So the nerve controlling the adrenal gland went haywire. Okay, you can go back and look at the article. It surged by 400%, and simultaneous with this 400% surge in nerve activity of the nerve controlling the adrenal gland, at least the sympathetic nerve controlling the adrenal gland. The sympathetic nerve is part of the sympathetic nervous system. Okay, the sympathetic nervous system is a fight or flight, which adrenaline is highly linked to that. Whether you're going to fight or flight, that's you're going to have adrenaline. You drive down the highway, blue light goes off in your rearview mirror. You're going to get that surge of adrenaline. But don't run from highway patrol. Don't fight them either, for that matter. But Dell gave us a direct observation. Okay, why was half the contents of the adrenal gland missing? Because the nerve controlling the adrenal gland lost control. Why was half the contents of the adrenal gland missing? Because the nerve controlling the adrenal gland lost control. Lost control when? When the little mouse went into opioid withdrawal. So this is what happened to you as a human being. This is what happened to you when you went into opioid withdrawal. The nerve controlling your adrenal gland lost control. Okay, it wasn't the only nerve that lost control. Other nerves lost control. Okay, your eyes started watering, your nose started running. Well, those are nerves losing control. Okay, your heart's pounding, that's a nerve losing control. Okay, you lose control of your bowels, well, those are nerves losing control. But the little nerve controlling the adrenal gland, see, that's different. You lose control of your sweat glands, that's uncomfortable. You lose control of your bowels, that's distressing. You lose control of your adrenal gland, darn thing will kill you. For those of you who felt like you may die, you were right. Okay, you lose control of your adrenal gland and all that adrenaline gets dumped in your system, you may well die. Adrenaline will kill you. It'll kill you with a heart attack. Okay, so we saw 1963, hey, half the contents of the adrenal gland are gone after 2 days of opioid withdrawal. We saw 1968, hey, there's a whole bunch of metabolites of adrenaline in the urine after a couple of days of withdrawal. We saw 1990, that was a Dell study, 1990. Direct observation, when you go into opioid withdrawal, you lose control of the nerve controlling the adrenal gland. That's mind-blowing. Okay, there's your answer right there. So what are we looking at today? We're looking at the Chang study, C-H-A-N-G, Chang. Now what Chang did was basically replicate Dell. This is how science works. If something is important and you're trying to prove it, replicate it. Do the study again. Replicate it. And so Chang basically replicated the important parts of the Dell study, and lo and behold, got the same results. Okay, that's how you give credibility to science. You replicate something. So Chang replicated Dell. Thank you. Okay, but Chang took it a step further. This is pretty cool. This I like cool. This is science. Chang took it a step further, and before he did the experiment on some of the mice, he surgically removed the adrenal gland. Took them out. And then when he gave the Narcan, gave the naloxone, put the little mouse in opioid withdrawal. These were opioid-dependent mouse, and he put them in opioid withdrawal with naloxone. Lo and behold, those mice that didn't have adrenal glands, those mice whose adrenal glands had been surgically removed, they didn't get a surge in adrenaline. Okay, that replicates the Dell study and proves that surge in adrenaline was coming from the adrenal gland. So what we're talking about here, folks, it's not a brain disease. Okay, those of you who have gone to see specialists, you've gone to see psychiatrists, you've gone to see addiction specialists, you've gone to see the doctor, you've gone to see your provider, and they told you that you had a brain disease, opioid use disorder, opioid addiction, those are brain diseases. Okay, we're not looking at a brain disease here, folks. We're looking at hard facts. We're looking at cold, hard scientific evidence that this is not a brain disease. Okay, this is a loss of control, the nerve controlling the adrenal gland, and the nerve controlling the adrenal gland went haywire, and the adrenal gland went haywire. Take out the adrenal gland, doesn't go haywire. Take out the adrenal gland, you'll get a big old surge in epinephrine, norepinephrine, dopamine. These are the adrenalines. Humans have 3 adrenalines: epinephrine, norepinephrine, dopamine. Okay, medically we call them the catecholamines. Don't get hung up on the big words. Happy to use the term adrenaline. When I say adrenaline, I mean epinephrine, norepinephrine, and dopamine. When I say the word adrenaline, I mean the catecholamines, all 3 of them. If we were talking about insects, we'd be talking about octopamine, which is what the adrenaline is in insects. Anything that moves on this planet, okay, anything that's on a plant, basically, has a catecholamine, adrenaline. Adrenaline is fundamental to life, not something you want to be messing around with. So So far, we've looked at 4 studies. We've looked at the gun study, we've looked at Kara Brody, we've looked at Dell, we've looked at Chang. And we have already put together, we're up to 1990, we've already put together some really strong, powerful scientific evidence. This is not a brain disease, folks. Okay, this is a loss of control of the nerves that control the organs. Let me say that again. This is not a brain disease, folks. This is a loss of control of the nerves that are controlling the organs. And we've known this since 1990. Okay, people that want us to believe this is a brain disease, people that want us to believe the dopamine theory of addiction, people that want us to believe the brain disease model of addiction, at least as pertains to the opioids. We're not talking about amphetamines, cocaine, alcohol, or anything else. Here in this podcast, we're only talking about the opioids. But for people who want us to believe those brain theories as it pertains to the opioids, they're basically asking us to ignore these studies, which you can't do that in science. You can't pick and choose. Okay, you can't ignore some studies because they don't happen to fit with your little pet theory, your little model, okay, the way you want the world to be. So let's hold right there for today. Uh, I think we have from my perspective, we've got a nice little package all bundled up and tied up with a bow. Couldn't be any prettier. Okay, so let's hold here for today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for reaching out to us. And for those of you who have questions, I'm here. Reach out to me. Love to hear from you. Like us, subscribe to us. We got a long way to go, and we are not going to stop presenting the science of what actually happens to our people when they experience opioid withdrawal. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow.